Most entrepreneurs don't actually build that dream business. They build someone else's dream business and insert themselves into the job description. If you think about it, that's what most business blueprints are, right? There's someone else's answers to questions that you haven't asked yourself yet. The danger is not merely that you choose the wrong blueprint, it's that the blueprint works before you've consciously chosen the life that it's designed to produce. So the model you choose determines the experience you have of running a business. And it's ideal to pick one after you've asked yourself some very fundamental questions, like, what do I actually want to sell and deliver? How do I actually want to market it? How many people do I actually want to manage? How do I want to spend my time? How much visibility do I actually find enjoyable? How close or far do I want to be to my customers and clients? How large do I actually want this to become? And what kind of life should this business actually produce as it grows? So a blueprint you borrow from someone answers all those questions for you. And that's why it feels so relieving, right? Because uncertainty is uncomfortable. So we borrow certainty from someone whose success appears to prove that they know the way. And sometimes they know the way better than we do. So, we copy their offer, we copy their funnel, the content strategy, their team structure, their definition of scale, their definition of success. And sometimes it works. We get the clients, we make the money, we build something that looks successful, but then a strange thing happens. The business grows and our life slowly gets worse. And more customers and clients creates more work that we don't actually want to do. More visibility requires us to perform a version of ourselves that we don't want to actually be. More revenue creates more complexity, more management and more responsibility, but not actually more freedom, energy, or joy. And eventually we start resisting the very growth that we actually claim to want. So if you've ever wondered why you keep procrastinating on the strategy that you know should work, why you keep changing offers after proving that they can sell, why some part of you wants more, while another part of you quietly hangs on for dear life, then you may not actually have a discipline problem. You may not be afraid of success. You may not be missing anything. Your system may have actually intelligently calculated what more success inside your current blueprint is actually going to cost you, and it doesn't want to pay the price. So in this video, I want to show you why every business blueprint contains a hidden cost, and why the business that gets you paid can actually become the very thing that prevents you from being fully expressed in your genius, and how to design a business around your own life and your own superpowers without ignoring money or market reality. So by the end of this, you're going to have a practical way to identify which parts of your business are genuinely yours, which parts you inherited, and what your next move is towards a business that returns more life to you as it grows. So these are the same principles that I've used to help more than 1,500 founders scale their businesses and generate an additional $2 billion in revenue. I mentioned my own 7-figure business. And one of my clients, Eli, who's fully implemented this, who I just spent a week with in Tahoe, just had a $665,000 month while working less than 10 hours a week and enjoying his life more than ever before. And 6 months ago, he hit his first 250K in a single month for the first time. And when we first started working together a couple of years ago, he was averaging 40 to 50K months. So we're now aiming for 800K months by the end of the year, with him working 1 hour a day. Because when you architect your dream business to become optimal for who you are, then every next level comes easier and faster because you're scaling resonance instead of dissonance. So the first thing we need to do is actually define what a dream business actually is. Because I feel like most people, you've inherited that definition from someone else as well. So when people say dream business, they really usually mean one thing, which is a business that makes a lot of money. Maybe it runs with a small team, maybe it creates passive income, or maybe, you picture operating it from Bali while someone brings you a coconut with a tiny umbrella in it, and your incessant Stripe notifications gently harmonize with the sound of the ocean. And maybe that genuinely is your dream, right? But none of those things are universally desirable because some people just love building large teams. And others would rather remove their own appendix with a butter knife than manage 40 employees. Some founders want to speak on stages in front of, 10,000 people, and others want to quietly work with, 12 extraordinary clients and never explain to a stranger on the internet what they ate for breakfast. Some people love live delivery and, other people come alive through media. Some people want to build a business that outlives them. That's, generational asset. And other people want a beautiful, profitable organism that remains intimately connected to their presence. So there's no universally ideal business because there is no universally ideal life. Your dream business is not defined by its revenue model, its headcount, its reach, or its exit value because there's no perfect business, but there is one that's perfect for you. So your dream business is an architecture for your ideal life. It should reflect your values. It should express your genius. It should honor your chosen constraints. It should allow you to spend your time in ways that actually make you feel more alive. And it should create something that others find genuinely valuable. And the larger your business gets, the better your life should become. Not only because you make more money, which is great, but the growth should actually give you more energy, more freedom, more expression, more meaningful contribution, more fulfillment, more opportunity to do the work that you're uniquely built to do, right? The business itself, in this case, becomes part of the dream. It's not a machine that you tolerate for 20 years so you can eventually sell it and then start living. It actually produces the life you want through the way it operates right now. So that's the distinction between what I call a paid to perform business and a paid to exist business. A paid to perform business pays you for what you can make yourself do, right? You identify something that people will pay for, you learn the skills, you perform the tasks, you maintain the persona, you produce the outcome, and then money arrives in exchange for that. And there's nothing wrong with that, right? Paid to perform is how most people escape survival. It teaches us to create value, make offers, keep promises, and actually develop real competence in a field. And it may be the exact business you need for a particular season. The problem is turning a survival vehicle into a permanent identity, because a paid to perform business pays you to sustain a role, whether or not that role remains true to who you actually want to be. So the better you become at performing it, the more the market asks you to repeat it. Then success actually locks the performance in place because the business rewards an expression of you that may be profitable, but it increasingly feels dead. Pay to exist is different, right? Pay to exist pays you for the most valuable expression for who you are, how you see the world, how you think, and it actually returns more life to you the more successful the business becomes. It doesn't merely give you the freedom from work, but it makes the work itself an experience that is enjoyable. It's an expression of your genius. It's a source of energy. And it becomes the architecture through which you create wealth, you serve the world deeply, and you live more fully. A paid to perform business may make enough money to fund your ideal life today or someday, but a paid to exist business produces your ideal life through the way it operates in the process of you achieving your goals. So it turns your genius, your desires, your wisdom, and your way of being into meaningful value. It gives you more energy than it actually takes from you. And the bigger it becomes, the more wealth, freedom, expression, evolution, and service become available through it. Now, paid to exist does not mean that you receive money merely because your aura logged into Zoom, right? It doesn't mean that you never have to perform an annoying task, you never have to follow through on a commitment, or you just absolve yourself from doing anything difficult. You still need to create value. The market still has to recognize that value. Another human being still has to want the result enough to exchange money for it. Your customers are not morally obligated to finance your self-expression. So in a pay-to-perform business, performance replaces your essence. In a pay-to-exist business, performance serves your essence and actually amplifies it. The structure gives your genius form. The marketing makes it more perceptible. Sales makes the invitation, and delivery turns the promise into an experience or an outcome that another person can actually receive. Money completes the exchange and allows the work to continue. So this is not a less commercially rigorous business. It's actually a more coherent version of it. The source of the value that you're actually offering and the structure that's delivering the value are actually finally working together, originating from the right source, which is your unique zone of genius, the thing that turns you on, that feels like play to you, but it feels like work to other people, wrapped in your singular worldview that makes the whole thing a category of one. And that's exactly why someone else cannot hand you the blueprint for it. Because a business blueprint is sold to you based on the visible business strategy, but it actually includes some invisible elements as well. So it contains a hidden lifestyle that it actually locks you into, a hidden identity that it requires you to perform, a hidden nervous system state that it biases you into, a hidden job description for the founder in terms of the things you have to do. So think about it, right? A daily content blueprint assumes that you want to actually become a media personality. A high ticket one-on-one model assumes repeated intimacy and live delivery actually give you energy. An agency model assumes you want to recruit, manage, and develop talent. A course business assumes that your genius actually survives standardization. A membership model assumes sustained community contact is actually something you want more of. And a speaking business assumes that travel and public performance actually fit the life you want to live. A software company may give you leverage, but it may also require years of product development, fundraising, technical management, and conversations where, someone's saying words like scrum and sprint velocity with a completely straight face. None of these models are inherently good or bad. Any of them could be someone's dream, but just as much as they could be someone else's personalized psychological torture chamber. The problem is choosing the architecture before examining the life that's actually embedded inside it. Because when someone teaches you their blueprint, they show you the visible mechanics, right? They show you their offer, they show you their funnel, they show you their pricing, their content, their hiring playbook. But the mechanics are actually sitting on top of invisible assumptions. How much attention do they actually enjoy? How much repetition can they tolerate? How do they relate to risk? How quickly do they make decisions? Whether they want intimacy or reach, whether they want artistry or operational scale, whether complexity stimulates them or slowly makes them fantasize about moving into a monastery where no one's heard of Slack. Their blueprint is actually a record of their genius, their values, their appetites, their wounds, their constraints, and the life that they actually desire. It's personal and it's deeply autobiographical, but unfortunately, most people who are selling you the stuff sell it as universal, right? And when you copy it, you don't just copy their strategy, you inherit their relationship with work, you inherit their values, priorities, and psychological blind spots, you inherit their calendar, you inherit their father wounds, you inherit their definition of enough, you inherit the identity that their business requires the founder to actually perform. You inherit their life. And that's why two people can use the exact same blueprint and get completely different results. And if by some miracle they execute it perfectly and get the same financial outcomes, they still have completely different experiences of living inside that business. One person becomes more alive and the other at best becomes more successful and less themselves. The strategy works, right? It just produces the life that it was designed to produce, not the life that they actually wanted. So let me give you two opposite examples. Imagine one founder whose deepest genius is research, writing, and synthesizing complex ideas. They love disappearing for 3 days, discovering something no one else has seen, and returning with a body of work that changes how people think. But they follow a high-ticket coaching blueprint. Now, their calendar is filled with back-to-back calls. Their revenue grows every time that they add more proximity. Their customers are happy, the model works, but every new level of success removes them from the work that makes them exceptional. So at $10,000 a month, the business feels validating. At $50,000, it feels busy. At $100,000 a month, it feels like a hostage situation. The problem is not coaching, right? The problem is that the model scales what drains this particular founder and starves what makes them valuable. It disconnects them from the source as they grow, and it cannibalizes the very thing that created their success in the first place. So their dream business may be built around writing, intellectual property, licensing, asynchronous diagnosis, media, or a small amount of extremely high level advisory. Same person, same market, right? Potentially more value, but completely different architecture. Now, imagine another founder. Their genius comes alive in direct contact with another human being. They can sit across someone, they can see the pattern beneath the pattern, and they can create a breakthrough in 20 minutes that the person has been circling for 5 years. But they're told that freedom means removing themselves from delivery. So they build a low ticket course, they automate everything. They spend their whole life making content to send strangers down into a funnel that prevents them from actually doing the work that they love. So on paper, it's leveraged, but in their body, it feels lonely. Their dream may not actually be a passive course business. It may be 12 amazing clients, very high prices, deep proximity, a small team, and enough spaciousness to bring their genius into every relationship. Now, you can apply this to any kind of business, any kind of model, in any kind of industry, right? But in these examples, one founder needs less contact to become more alive, and the other needs more. So which blueprint is correct? Neither or both? The correct architecture is the one that creates extraordinary value while actually producing a life that the founder actually wants. This is what a borrowed blueprint can never produce for you. A paid to perform business eventually creates a ceiling because growth begins demanding more of an identity, an activity, or a life that the founder doesn't actually want. So this happens across a bunch of ceilings. The first one is an energetic ceiling. The business grows by multiplying work that consumes more energy than it actually returns. So at some point, the founder's system begins protecting them from further growth. They procrastinate, they disappear, they complicate the offer, they abandon a strategy right before it compounds. They tell themselves that they have a mindset problem. But actually, if you look closely, the resistance is actually quite intelligent because their system has run the forecast. It knows exactly what double the demand will do to their calendar, to their body, to their relationships, and to their creative life. They don't actually fear success in the abstract. They fear the specific life that the current version of success will create. Then you have the identity ceiling. So the business pays them to remain someone that they've already outgrown. Maybe the brand rewards certainty when their work wants to become more exploratory. Maybe the market knows them for a problem that they no longer care to solve. Maybe their authority is built around an old wound, and healing the wound threatens the business that actually monetizes it. Maybe they built the business to make money when what they deeply desire is to serve a calling. The next evolution of the founder becomes financially inconvenient. So they remain loyal to the identity that pays them and betray the life that actually wants to emerge through them. Then you have the operational ceiling. So every increase in revenue creates a proportional increase in delivery, management, and complexity. So in this case, growth just makes the business heavier instead of lighter. The bigger the business gets, the harder running it becomes, and more of the founder's time, attention, and energy gets consumed. And the last one is the creative ceiling. So when the work no longer has any life in it, there's just no juice, it feels flat and dull, the signal weakens. The content may technically be correct, the offer may still be valuable, the strategy may still be optimized, but no one can feel the life inside it. They can't feel you inside it. And in this case, because you're mechanically executing on tasks instead of being lit up and turned on by a mission that juices you up every day, eventually the market catches on, right? The part that could never be copied has been removed from the business. That's the coherence ceiling. The business cannot grow beyond the amount of dissonance that the founder is willing or able to sustain. The answer to all of this is not to always burn it down. So don't be in a rush to fire your team, delete your funnels, or burn anything down, because often a lot of your existing business is actually quite useful. The offer may create real value, You may have the right audience. You may have an excellent team. The economics might be strong. So the invitation here is not to reject everything you've implemented based on what you've learned from someone else. It's just to stop treating borrowed strategy as a commandment. And it's to understand that the next level of your business is a fingerprint, not a blueprint. You can learn from everyone without abandoning your needs, values, constraints, and desires. You can borrow tools, you can study architecture, you can use proven mechanisms, but you have to actually choose the life that all those things are designed to create. So if there's no blueprint, what the fuck do you use instead? Well, what you need is a navigation system. And there's an important difference between a blueprint and a navigation system. A blueprint tells you exactly what the finished structure should look like before you begin. A navigation system helps you remain oriented while moving through terrain that cannot be fully known in advance. Your dream business has not existed before. You're going a place you've never been before. So your dream business combines your life, your genius, your desires, your constraints, your market, and this particular moment in ways that no pre-existing model can completely predict. You can borrow pieces, but taken and adopted whole, it may actually lead you towards a life that you actually don't want. So you don't need certainty about the entire route. You actually need 5 things. You need a destination, you need a compass, you need contact with the terrain, you need a vehicle, and you need the willingness to navigate in uncertainty. So the first question isn't, what's the best blueprint for the next level of this business? It's, what life is this business actually here to produce? And most founders answer this with abstractions like freedom, impact, abundance. All those things are great. What does freedom mean on a Wednesday afternoon? How many hours are you working? With whom? Doing what? What kind of problems do you want to obsess over? What condition is your body in? How much of your attention remains available for your partner, your children, your friends, your art, your health, and God? What do you want more success to give you more of? And what must growth actually protect? And what can the business never be allowed to require from you, no matter how profitable it might become? So constraints actually matter here, right? If you want to work 20 hours a week, that is not an embarrassing limitation that you should feel shame around when you have your next wank to Hormozi's latest YouTube video. It's a design input. And if you want to spend 6 months a year traveling, the model actually has to account for that. If you don't want more employees, stop copying blueprints that interpret headcount as progress. If you want more depth, beauty, and intimacy, don't build a machine that requires constant volume. And if you really want to build a billion-dollar enterprise like some of my clients, don't pretend that you want a lifestyle business because freedom is fashionable. Tell yourself the truth about the destination, because you cannot design an architecture for a life that you're unwilling to admit that you actually want. So the next step is to actually define and form your internal compass. Your destination tells you where you want to go, but your compass tells you what is true north while you move. So it gives you an orientation and a direction. So this includes your values, your genius, your desires, your energy, your convictions, the problems that you cannot stop seeing. It's the work that feels like play to you and magic to someone else. So ask yourself, what kind of work gives me more energy after I do it? What transformation do people consistently experience around me? What do I see that other people miss? What part of myself do I want the business to pay me to become more of? What could I explore for 10 years and become more interested rather than less? What do I want to spend the rest of my life mastering? This is not just about choosing easy work, right? Your deepest work may be demanding. It probably will be. It'll probably confront every insecurity you have, and it's going to require more discipline than the borrowed business ever did. But hard and wrong are not the same thing. There's difficulty that expands you, and then there is difficulty that slowly extracts you from your own life. Your compass helps you feel the difference. Then we have reality. So your dream business is personal. It exists in relationship with other people. The market is the terrain. What do people want? What problems carry urgency? What desires do you want to point to? What outcomes are actually valuable? Can the people you want to serve actually recognize the value that you create? Can you communicate it effectively? Will they exchange money for it? And what's going to be required for them to want to exchange 10 times as much money for it? You can feel divinely called to create something, but people actually need to understand why it matters, right? Every revelation still needs translation. The market is not the enemy of your soul. The market is where your signal meets another person's desire. Their response gives you information, and that is a great indicator. It's a feedback loop to help you improve the offer, make the language more clear, maybe help the audience understand what you sell much deeper, and help people actually recognize the value that you're offering. The point is contact, right? Your internal compass without the terrain creates self-expression that no one actually values. The terrain without your internal compass sends you efficiently towards a life that you don't actually want. Your dream business emerges dynamically through the relationship between the two. So once you understand the destination, the compass, and the terrain, then you should design the vehicle. So this is the architecture, this is the offer, the pricing, the marketing, the sales process, the delivery, the team, the systems. This is the way that the business actually grows. And architecture matters because genius without a vehicle remains potential. So your business architecture turns the potential energy in your genius into kinetic energy in the form of money for you, value for your customers and clients. So the question is not simply, can this model scale? The question is, if this model scales, what happens to my life? If the demand triples, do you become more essential to your business? Does the model create the resources to remove you from the work that actually drains you? Does growth give you more access to your genius or less? Does the customer experience improve as the system becomes more leveraged? Does scale amplify your signal or dilute it? Does the business become more regenerative for you, the team, and the customer? So your dream vehicle is the smallest coherent architecture capable of carrying the maximum value while obeying the rules of the life that you want. Not the largest or the most impressive, right? Not the one that's performing best in someone else's Instagram carousel. The one that's actually designed for your destination and the one that allows you to maximally enjoy the journey. And then you move, right? And you don't need to have the entire route mapped out before you begin, but you do need contact with reality. So make the offer, publish the idea, serve a client, test the delivery, charge money. Notice what happens. So here you're listening for two forms of feedback. External feedback, which is, did it create value? Do people want it? Did they understand it? Did the economics work? And internal feedback. Did the work make you feel more alive? Did it deepen your genius? Did it create the life that you thought it would? Did you enjoy who you became while actually doing it? You need both. An internal yes with an external no may be fun for you, but not materially impactful for your finances. An external yes with an internal no may be a profitable opportunity that you'll eventually resent. The dream business lives where your body gives you the full fuck yes, and the market pulls value from you faster than you can actually create it. And you discover that through iteration. You're not waiting for God to fax you a completed org chart. You're actually participating in creation. You're listening, you're building, you're hearing what reality gives you back, you adjust. And the next version becomes more coherent. And over time, the architecture begins to feel inevitable, not because you copied it from someone else, but because every part emerged in response to what is more resonant for you. So here's what I want you to do. Take the business that you currently have and answer these 7 questions. So first, if this business doubled tomorrow, what would become better in my life? Be specific. Second, what would become worse? Where would the current architecture create more weight, more repetition, more performance, or more complexity? Third, who does this business pay me to be? Does it reward my genius, my curiosity, my leadership, my capacity to create value? Or does it reward a character that I'm increasingly getting tired of performing? Fourth, what work returns more energy than it consumes? Not because it's necessarily effortless, though that might be the case for some of the things you do, but because doing it makes you feel more like yourself. Fifth, what's the most valuable result that work creates for another person? Where does your aliveness become asymmetrically economically meaningful? Sixth, which rule inside your business did you borrow without consciously choosing the life attached to it? right? Maybe you decided you need to post content daily. Maybe you decided you need a large team. Maybe you decided that scale requires removing yourself from delivery. Your most expensive offers require you sacrificing all your time and energy. Maybe you decided that the business is only legit if it can be sold. Whose rule is that? And what life is it actually producing? And then seventh, what is one small architectural experiment that you can run right now? There's not the perfect answer that solves the entire equation or the final incarnation of your destiny. It's just what's one simple move that can tune this business a little closer to the right frequency? Maybe you adjust the delivery. Maybe you raise the price. Maybe you remove an obligation, right? Maybe you create that offer that you can't stop thinking about. Maybe you spend a little more time in the work that actually creates disproportionate value. You let reality give you the next piece of insight. And that's actually how a mapless founder moves, right? There are people who use maps, but those maps were drawn by someone else. Someone else went into uncharted territories and emerged with a map. And they handed that map to others who just follow the same well-worn trail. Then there's other people, people I call the mapless founders, who we have this weird gene that makes us very allergic to following someone else's path. And we need to chart our own course. We need our path to be as unique to us, as everything else in our life. And that's how we move as mapless people, not recklessly or passively, responsively. And this is you if, you've tried other people's blueprints, but they ended up feeling like a straitjacket. There is some part of you that knows that you need something that's completely unique to you. I call this building a business that fits like a custom fit bespoke suit made out of sweatband material. So we want our business to not feel like a straitjacket. We want to feel like it was built uniquely for us. And we want it to have enough flex so that, you can get up from your seat and do squats and not feel any chafing. And by the way, if you want to book a chat with me where we can apply all this to your business, there's a link somewhere below. So here's what I want to actually have you take away from all this. You cannot build your dream business from someone else's blueprint because your dream is as unique as your fingerprint. I think your dream business is meant to be the perfect container for your soul. It has your values, your genius, your desires, your constraints, your relationships, your unique way of creating value, and your definition of a life that's actually well lived. No one else can know the exact architecture that's going to hold all of that. But that doesn't mean that you have to reject everything that's already been discovered, right? You can borrow tools, you can study models, you can learn from people who are extraordinary at what they do. Just don't confuse their destination with yours. Don't mistake the vehicle that carried them for the vehicle that's going to carry you. And don't outsource the design of your life because uncertainty made someone else's certainty feel safer. Mapless does not mean directionless. You need a destination that's actually yours. You need a compass that's rooted in your values and your genius and your desires. And you also need enough humility to read the terrain. You need a vehicle that's built for you to enjoy the journey, and you need the courage to take the right next step every time before the entire path becomes visible. Because the goal is not to create a business that just pays you enough to escape your life. The goal is to create a business that pays you for the most valuable expression of who you are and returns more life to you, your customers, and the entire world as it grows. A paid-to-perform business may fund your ideal life someday, right? A paid-to-exist business produces it through the way that you live, create, and serve today. And that business doesn't come with a blueprint. It has to be discovered through your relationship with yourself, the people you serve, and the future vision that's asking to be built through you. And when the architecture is finally yours, growth no longer feels like becoming more successful at someone else's life. It feels like becoming more fully alive inside your own.